Welcome, my sisters and brothers, to the Law of One, conscious channeling of LL Research. I am Robert, your humble messenger and host, and it is my pleasure to share this spiritual information with you. Let us now speak of Indigo-Ray Blockage. The usual suspects. It is important to note that the energy system of the mind, body, and spirit of the complex of energies cannot be manipulated beyond certain limits. That is, if there is a blockage in the lower three energy centers, which have to do with survival, the way the self regards the self, or relates to other entities one at a time, and the way the self relates to the groups of third density, such as the work environment and the family, then the power of the one infinite creator that enters the body in infinite supply cannot come into the heart center with full energy. There are many ways to distort, block, or confuse these lower energies. Each is working with the concept of self in relationship, and with the concept of self in groups in ways that distorts and filter that energy. And each, being unique, is doing that distorting and partial blocking in his or her own way. And therefore each has what this instrument calls a knot to untangle that is unlike anyone else's knot. Has the confusion to unravel that is not precisely like anyone else's confusion. The Confederation material suggests that the three most common sources of indigo-ray blockage are judgment, fear, and unworthiness. Let's look at judgment first. We have a keen sense of justice, although we observe repeatedly that our world is not always a just place. We enjoy feeling that we live in a world of stable values. Most of us have been given the 10 Commandments in Sunday school. We know not to murder, steal, covet, tell lies, or disrespect our parents. However, our day-to-day life offers us many chances to do the right thing that are not covered by the general truisms of the 10 Commandments. For instance, we might do everything required of us in a relationship, but at the same time, we might hold resentment at having to do that. Then we might judge ourselves as lacking because of our bad attitude. There are as many ways to fall short of our own ideals as there are grains of sand along the seashore. The seduction of self-judgment is its tidiness. We like to know where we stand. We like to feel justified in our actions and opinions. And so we judge ourselves and others endlessly. We tend to keep track of the credits and debits of behavior and attitude. It is as though we feel spiritual evolution is linear and consists of chalking up more credits than debits. Yet the opposite is true. Spiritual evolution is qualitative, not quantitative. It runs on the energy of forgiveness and acceptance, not scorekeeping. It is inevitable that we will repeatedly fall short of our ideals. It comes with being human. And it is good to note these lapses from self-perceived perfection. As players, we are always on the outlook for ways to make more skillful choices. These errors are the grits of our mills of self-improvement. However, if our self-judgment lingers beyond the sincere desire to learn from our mistakes, then that self-judgment is likely to become toxic. Too much self-judgment closes the energy pathway into the heart. The player's goal is to keep the heart open. Self-judgment has to go. The Confederation does not draw a picture of a God of judgment. The Old Testament's vengeful Jehovah is not to be found. The Confederation's infinite creator does not keep score. Instead, it loves us endlessly. It loves us exactly the way we are. The Confederation suggests that we are in charge of our own judgment, both during life and after its ending. We are responsible for forgiving ourselves and starting over when we find ourselves in error. And we are responsible for walking the steps of light during graduation and choosing exactly within which intensity of light we are most comfortable. If the matter of judgment is left in our hands, then we have the capacity for being harsh or gentle with ourselves. We can keep score and find ourselves wanting, or we can forgive and begin again whenever we find ourselves in error. Those of QO say, it is your challenge to find ways to open the heart to the present moment and love therein. You shall fail according to your cruel judgment again and again. We ask you to know deeply and surely that each mistake, each error, each missed opportunity is a gift to the Infinite One, just as much as each moment when you judge yourself to be, as this instrument would say, on the beam or in the groove, clumsy or graceful, awkward or flowing. Your spirit is utterly beloved. In order for us, as seekers, to do work in consciousness, then we need to focus on the love in the moment. And if we do error, which we certainly will do time and time again, we need to engage clearly the consciousness in self-forgiveness. We need to clear away the toxic energies of self-disappointment and disapproval and come back to our own open hearts. Another frequent source of blockage is fear. A lot of our fears are bound up in our wanting to feel safe. We may, for instance, fear intimacy because we have been hurt in a previous relationship. We may not want to explore our own motives in doing key things because we fear what we shall find. We as players will almost inevitably feel fear as we get to know ourselves better, once we start uncovering our own shadow side. How can we accept and love those dark parts of our personality that would break the Ten Commandments happily in pursuit of our goals? It is only when we remember the Confederation's assertions that we are all things whatsoever in creation. And it is inevitable that the full circle of being contains the entire shadow side given to the human nature. Can we move forward fearlessly? Perhaps the most common fear among seekers is that we will not make the grade and graduate. As we wake up and get used to the game board, we will hit brick walls from time to time. We will not know how to go forward. Those of QO say, we would speak of two minds and two hearts. The first mind is the mental mind. In it there can only be mentally feared obstacles. For one who is an adventurer within its own mind, the barriers of fear do not arise. The second mind is the heart. The seeker who is an adventurer within its own mind thinks from the open heart. The open heart does not fear that it may do the wrong thing. It follows the energies and impulses of love and acts fearlessly. And that is the attitude the seeker wants to capture: fearlessness. The process of spiritual awakening and maturing is a bit like panning for gold. We players will shift through a lot of sand and silt as we seek to find the gold which lies within our deeper natures. It is a messy process sometimes, but this is not something to fear. Again, fear closes the pathway to the heart. As seekers, we know that when we encounter fear within ourselves, we need to work with that fear until we are once again free of its constricting effects. We need to get back into our open hearts. The third most frequent cause of blockage, which keeps us from doing indigo ray work, is unworthiness. Our society gives us many ways to feel less than worthy. We are too thin, too fat, too old, too young, and so forth. Yet the Confederation assures us that we need not accept these things of unworthiness as real. QO says, each entity will have deeply personal areas where the energy is drawn and leached away from metaphysical pursuits. And it is to these rough places of the personality that the worker in consciousness will go in thought, not to condemn the self, not to attempt with the knife to excise surgically parts of the self, but rather to see these places as places where the earth is covering the jewels in such a deep way that the focus of service and learning is shifted to trivial concerns. In no wise do we recommend that entities simply cut out these activities which the self considers beneath metaphysical notice. Rather, we would encourage each to come into a vision or an attitude concerning the self that is epitomized in the phrase, "My funny Valentine." We find the words to the song very pointed in this regard. My funny Valentine, your looks are laughable, unphotographable, yet you're my favorite work of art. This is how you may see yourself as a spiritual entity, as a funny but very, very sweet work of art. This is the view of the mind of the heart, compassion and affection for the self just as it is. The heart is willing for the self to be a work of art rather than a set of ledgers with good deeds recorded on one side and failings on the other, and the self being frequently perceived as being in deficit and unworthy. We need, as players in this illusion, to accept ourselves as worthwhile just as we are, even though at the same time we are always striving to improve our moves on the game board. This self-acceptance joins with fearlessness and non-judgment in creating the right environment within our energy bodies for doing work in consciousness, using the indigo and violet rays to access the gateway to intelligent infinity. Resting within our open hearts, We are ready for further adventures.